An electric car's most expensive and vital part is the battery. That's why this is one of the top things that automakers and tech companies are constantly working on to optimize. Right now, lithium-ion batteries are the mainstream in electric vehicles. But there's a newer technology that may or may not change the game, and that's the solid-state battery. So what is the difference? Both the lithium-ion battery and the solid-state battery are pretty similar when it comes to their overall structure. They both have an anode, a cathode, and an electrolyte. They both use lithium to produce electrical energy. The main difference between these two is the state of the electrolyte. The electrolyte is what regulates the flow of the electric current between the positive and negative sides of the battery. The lithium-ion battery uses liquid electrolytes. And if you don't already guess it from its name, the solid-state battery has thin layers of solid electrolytes. That's what helps transfer ions from the cathode to the anode when charging, and from the anode to the cathode when discharging and running the vehicle. Fans of the solid-state battery say this is the way of the future. Here's why. First off, a key issue with lithium-ion batteries is that in high temperatures they're flammable and can even explode. This is due to the flammable liquid inside the battery. But solid-state batteries don't have this liquid. This means they're more stable and don't have as high of a risk of catching on fire or exploding. Since these batteries are far less vulnerable to flames, they can work in a much broader temperature window. So even people living in tropical climates may have the chance to get their hands on an EV. And because of their higher density, these batteries can hold up to 50% more energy than the lithium-ion batteries do. So you can see they can really pack a punch. And supposedly you can reach an 80% charge in about 12 minutes. To top it all off, solid-state batteries are more compact and lighter than lithium-ion ones. That is because all that liquid inside lithium-ion batteries makes them heavy. Because of this weight difference, a smaller amount of batteries is needed for solid state. Did you know that solid-state batteries are not a recent phenomenon? Actually, they were first used back in the 1970s in pacemakers for heart patients. So it didn't start with cars. In pacemakers, a sheet of lithium metal is placed in direct contact with solid iodine. This causes a short circuit which forms a new layer of lithium iodide between them. After this layer is formed, a small and constant current can flow from the lithium anode to the iodine cathode. And this happens for several years. Today you can find even solid-state batteries in your smartwatch. But let's talk about Tesla. They're at the top of the EV game right now. So what's their stand on solid state? Well, believe it or not, Tesla, and by that I mean Elon Musk, hasn't been too vocal on this. What we do know is that many of Tesla's patents are around battery charging and charging infrastructure. It is possible that maybe Tesla's just waiting for the technology to mature. For now, Tesla's putting all their eggs in the new 4680 battery. It's supposed to be a quantum leap forward in lithium-ion technology. It can store 5 times the energy at half the cost of Tesla's current 2170 battery that's used in the Model 3 and Y. Note that I didn't say it's 5 times more energy dense. It just contains 5 times more, and the units are also much bigger than the current 2170 and the previous 1865. Tesla claims that the 4680 will enable a 100-fold increase in battery production by the year 2030. So it looks like Tesla isn't for or against solid state. Instead, they're betting on their own technology. If they're doing their own thing, it's safe to say they haven't yet been sold on solid state. Now, if you're wondering why a huge company like Tesla hasn't already jumped on the solid-state bandwagon, well, you're right to assume there's got to be some issues and controversies around this new solid-state technology. For example, one inherent flaw with the solid-state battery is its rate of degradation. Put simply, it degrades pretty quickly after a number of charge and discharge cycles. The reason is because the accumulation of lithium dendrites. Dendrites are thin, stick-like pieces of lithium that branch out and can even pierce the battery. This causes short circuits and other problems. When this happens, the lithium metal anode gets compromised. Right now, the only solution when this happens is to completely replace the battery unit. Researchers at Harvard believe they've come up with a better solution. They call the electrolyte sandwich, but not a sandwich you would eat. It's a multi-layer design that fills any cracks with dynamically generated decompositions. Lithium dendrites do still form, but this design controls and contains them. Think of it like a BLT sandwich. The top and bottom bread is like the lithium anode and cathode. The lettuce is the graphite. The tomato is the first electrolyte, and the bacon is the second electrolyte. Sandwiching the less stable electrolyte between the more stable solid electrolytes supposedly prevents any lithium dendrite growth. So the dendrites can build up and grow through the lettuce and tomato, but they stop at the bacon. So far, tests show that the multi-layer solid-state battery can hold 82% of its charge after 10,000 cycles. Another major problem with the solid-state battery is of mass production. Currently, car makers and technology companies are able to produce solid-state battery cells only one at a time in the lab. But the problem is, no one's been able to scale it up to mass production yet. Here's the thing. It's not easy to design a solid electrolyte that's stable, chemically inert, and still a good conductor of ions between the electrodes. Not to mention, they're expensive to make. Right now, a solid-state battery costs about 8 times more than making a lithium-ion one. That's a huge cost difference. And once you do make one, it's prone to cracking because of the brittleness of the electrolytes when they expand and contract during usage. It's not that car makers haven't planned to release solid-state battery cars before. They have. But it just seems that something else always seems to get in the way and causes the companies to cancel the projects. Take, for example, Fisker. They promised a supercar powered by a solid-state battery by 2020. 2020 came, and 2 years later, still nothing. Then they said it would be delayed until 2022, which is now. But now they've dropped the idea completely. Back in 2015, Dyson bought a solid-state battery company called SETT3. They spent literally billions of dollars developing their own EV. 2 years later, they dumped the project and wrote off the investment capital, then parted ways with SETT3. There's a Japanese battery and supercapacitor maker called Murata. Their technology addresses the common problem of sulfide escaping the battery pack, which is bad because it produces dangerously unhealthy gas when exposed to air. Murata's battery doesn't use sulfides in its chemistry. But here's the thing. Murata is focusing its battery technology for use in pacemakers and smartphones, which in itself is a good thing for sure. But they're not aiming for large batteries like the car industry would need. Overall, solid state is promised. But skeptics say there's still decades of research to go because the unsolved technical issues are preventing mass adoption. Believe it or not, solid state has been in the work for at least 40 years. There's been research done by Exxon dating all the way to 1978, believe it or not. Duracell in the early 1980s. There's been efforts by Toshiba, Sony, and others. That's a lot of known corporations. And these corporations have brainiac engineers. But many of these companies shelve their effort. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain. Toyota is betting big on solid state. Did you know they have the most number of patents for solid state battery technology? They own over 1,000 patents. Actually, Toyota's been pursuing the next generation battery technologies for over a decade now. Last September, Toyota posted a 12-second video of a solid state battery car on their official YouTube channel. Toyota is betting solid state battery technology as the potential cure-all for the problems that challenge EVs running on lithium ion. But interestingly, Toyota's first solid-state battery cars won't be pure battery EV. It'll be a hybrid. Toyota hasn't specified which hybrid will get a solid-state battery, but they confirmed that everything is on schedule. The main reason they won't immediately offer solid-state EVs has to do with the size of the battery pack. Hybrid cars with combustion engines have much smaller battery packs than pure EVs. This makes them perfect for testing. The increased amount of charging cycles makes it easier to see how these batteries will react on a pure EV. And these cars are supposed to charge fast. We're talking about going 0 to 100% charge in 10 minutes with an impressive range of 310 miles. This means you could travel from Philly to Boston in one charge. But since solid-state batteries come at such a high cost, Toyota doesn't expect the cost to come down enough by 2025, which is their target release date. But Toyota is not the only car maker betting on this. Japanese company Nissan's also planning to release a solid-state EV by 2028. Even the Japanese government is getting behind solid-state battery technology. The Japanese government apparently funded Toyota and Nissan with 2 trillion yen, which is over 19 billion US dollars, just to support decarbonization technology initiatives, which includes the use of solid-state batteries. Talk about a lot of money. So it's not just Toyota, it's not just Nissan, but the entire country of Japan that's rooting on this horse. Well, what's the main difference between the electric car versus the hydrogen car? Put simply, the electric car needs to be charged by plugging it into a charging point. On the other hand, you don't recharge a hydrogen car. Instead, you go to a hydrogen fuel station and fill it up with hydrogen. This hydrogen is then stored in a secure fuel tank, just like gasoline or diesel-powered cars. From there, it's fed into the fuel cell where it mixes with oxygen to generate electricity on board and on demand. No batteries needed. So let's look inside the fuel cell. We find a liquid with a positively charged anode on one side and a negatively charged cathode on the other, kind of similar to a battery. Then hydrogen atoms split into protons and electrons. Thanks to a reaction with oxygen, the protons turn into pure water. That's the exhaust product. So you have raining cars. The electrons provide the power for the car's electric motor. Add that to all the smaller reactions happening inside the fuel cell, and then boom, you got yourself a running, hydrogen-powered electric car. Did you know that there's also a battery on board too? This saves power for later, like when you accelerate. Even with this battery, the fuel cell usually just sends power directly to the motors. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't it kind of dangerous to carry around all that hydrogen in your car? What if it explodes? After all, remember the infamous 1937 Hindenburg airship disaster and how it was caused by leaking hydrogen, and it killed almost 40 people. Well, while it is true that hydrogen is flammable, so is gasoline. And you carry that around with you in your car all the time. Now, gas isn't as flammable as hydrogen, but you can be sure that the hydrogen car companies are taking the proper precautions. The hydrogen is pressurized, and the car's hydrogen tank is designed to contain all this extreme pressure and then some. It shouldn't be any more dangerous than your conventional gasoline-powered car. Elon Musk is against hydrogen technology. He sent out some pretty controversial tweets about hydrogen-powered cars. In 2020, he tweeted that fuel cells equal fool cells. Later, he said that hydrogen fuel cells make no sense, and that hydrogen is barely worth considering for a rocket's upper stage. He also quipped that it will be super obvious as time goes on. Let's just say this isn't the first time that Musk expressed strong opinions against this.
I think that they're extremely silly. If you're going to pick an energy storage mechanism, hydrogen is an incredibly dumb one to pick. You should just pick methane. That will become apparent in the next few years. There's no reason for us to have this debate.
So why all the hate for the hydrogen-powered car? Musk's main gripe is that the usability of hydrogen in a car, because it's very difficult to make and then to store it and use it. Part of the reason is because hydrogen is too low in density and it's flammable. If Elon Musk had to pick an alternative source to hydrogen, he'd rather choose methane or propane. Musk isn't the only one to hold a negative opinion on this. There's also Herbert Diess, CEO of Volkswagen. But the driving reason behind his anti-hydrogen view is the car's impact on the climate. He believes that hydrogen cars are bad for the earth. But one thing's for sure, don't expect either men to invest in hydrogen technology anytime soon. They have their money bet on battery cars, which they are producing. But it's not just these two men. Actually, did you know that the debate between lithium-ion batteries and hydrogen fuel cells has been raging for decades? Elon Musk is obviously on Team Lithium. After all, that's what his Tesla empire is built on. But actually, hydrogen fuel cells have been around much longer than lithium-ion batteries. Many people don't know this, but hydrogen fuel cells played a fundamental part in NASA's putting men in the moon in 1969. But in the end, lithium-ion batteries proved to be much easier to commercialize, especially for use in passenger cars. Look, if these two high-profile leaders of two major car brands are anti-hydrogen, then does this mean that hydrogen-powered cars are really all that bad? Well, let's compare the hydrogen car versus the electric car. First, let's talk about refilling. With the electric car, you need to recharge it. It can literally take hours. Your car doesn't care if you have an important job interview or a baseball game to catch. If it's got to charge, you got to wait. On the other hand, with a hydrogen car, you can fill up with a hydrogen fuel pump, and it only takes a few minutes, similar to what you do with a conventional gas or diesel car at the pump. Another advantage of hydrogen is that it's literally the most abundant element in the entire universe. That means it's pretty easy to find and pretty hard to run out of. Hydrogen fuel cells also don't generate greenhouse gas emissions, unlike fossil fuel sources. This means less pollution and improved air quality. When you combine hydrogen fuel with oxygen, these fuel cells produce plenty of electric power while emitting pure water as waste exhaust. For these reasons, governments around the world are starting to rally behind hydrogen as an important part of their plan for adjusting climate change. This isn't just in the transportation sector, but across the entire energy grid. In 2020, Joe Biden announced a $2 trillion clean energy plan, which included renewable hydrogen technology innovation. Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the UK, announced $446 million in funding to help lower greenhouse gas emissions. This effort includes the development of hydrogen fuel. China also recently announced their goal to have over 1 million hydrogen fuel cell vehicles on the road by 2030. Did you know that NASA also uses fuel cells? The exhaust is so clean that astronauts actually drink the water produced by fuel cells on a space shuttle. Unlike coal, natural gas, and nuclear power, hydrogen is a non-toxic fuel source that has many possible uses, not just for cars. who knows what else it might power in the future. Now, if you're the kind of person whose neighbors get angry when you rev up your engine, then this might be the car for you. Hydrogen cars don't produce any noise. Like electric cars, hydrogen-powered cars are much quieter than those powered by gasoline and diesel engines. So does this all mean that Elon Musk was completely wrong about hydrogen cars? Not exactly. At the moment, there are more negatives to hydrogen cars than positives. First off, hydrogen fuel is expensive to fill up. We're talking $80 for a full tank. Compare that to $50 for a tank of gasoline, you can see where the issues start. It also isn't easy to extract hydrogen. It's true, hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, but the thing is, on Earth, hydrogen is found mostly in water. This means it needs to be extracted from water by using electricity to separate the hydrogen and oxygen particles. This is called electrolysis. Another hydrogen extraction option is to extract it from natural gas. This is called reforming. Neither of these processes are easy or cheap, and both require a significant amount of energy. Then there's the issue of transporting fuel. To move oil around, just send it through pipeline. To move coal around, just put it on the back of a truck. But moving hydrogen around is a different story. Just moving even small amounts of hydrogen is very expensive. Wondering how all this hydrogen is going to be stored? Hydrogen can be stored either as gas or high-pressure tanks or as a liquid in cryogenic temperatures. Unfortunately, both methods of hydrogen storage involve quite a bit of loss of energy. When you compress hydrogen, that requires about 13% of the total energy content of the hydrogen itself. And if you decide to liquefy the hydrogen, it loses about 40% of the total energy. Hydrogen isn't exactly completely green. Yes, it's clean when it's being used in your hydrogen car, but the sheer amount of energy it takes to get hydrogen into the fuel pumps is pretty large. Ironically, most of the current production is done using fossil fuels, so it's more bad news for the environment. Producing this fuel is expensive in carbon and dollars. Another problem with hydrogen cars is the infrastructure. Sure, it might not be as easy to find an electric car charging port compared to gas stations, but they're likely to be relatively close by. Unfortunately, because of the low volume of hydrogen cars on the roads today, there aren't as many hydrogen pumps as there are electric charging stations. So if you're driving through a small city with your brand new hydrogen car and need to fill it up, it looks like you'll be stuck there for a while. Despite all this, let's say you still decide to get a hydrogen car. Well, the bad news is there aren't a lot of choices at the moment. Right now, there's only 2 hydrogen cars publicly available in select markets, which are the Toyota Mirai and the Hyundai Nexo. Started at almost 50 grand, the Toyota Mirai has some downsides itself. First of all, it only outputs 182 horsepower. And second, if you live in the U.S., the hydrogen fuel cell station infrastructure for the Mirai is pretty much limited to California. Right now, it looks like to own a Mirai, you'd have to live in California. There are a handful of other countries that offer the Mirai, but not many. So hydrogen-powered cars aren't as perfect and ideal as everyone wants it to be, but it does have a lot of potential. Something to think about is how far hydrogen could have gone if more resources were put into it. Did you know that a few years ago, Toyota announced it would grant royalty-free licenses to its 24,000 patents on EV technology, including its hydrogen technology? Why would a major car maker want to open up its secrets to competitors? Actually, the goal was to accelerate the development of alternative fuel car technology to promote the widespread use of any type of electric vehicles. If you ask me, that bold move was a brilliant strategy. But let's rewind to 2004. The governor of California at the time, Arnold Schwarzenegger, announced his vision for a revolutionary new California highway. The plan? A clean and modern hydrogen highway filled with zero-emission hydrogen-fueled cars, buses, and trucks. Unfortunately, this never panned out. Today, hydrogen technology is still in its infancy, kind of like where electric cars were 10 years ago. Only time will tell if hydrogen will succeed or fail. Last year, full battery electric vehicles, or BEVs, made up a massive 71% of total EV sales. In fact, BEVs are more popular than ever before. So, if there's been this growing trend, why did Toyota keep resisting the BEV space until just now? Well, just consider the words of Toyota's CEO, Akio Toyoda, back in 2020. His belief was that Japan would completely run out of electricity in the summer if all cars were BEVs that ran on electric power. Also, the infrastructure needed to support an entirely electric fleet would cost Japan a boatload of money too, anywhere between 14 to 37 trillion yen to be exact. That's equivalent to 135 to 358 billion dollars. Akio Toyoda suggests that politicians who advocated removing all gasoline cars just didn't understand the massive costs involved. But economic economic costs weren't the only reason behind Toyota's reluctance for battery electric vehicles. The thing is, battery electric cars require fewer workers and fewer parts to make. This means many jobs would be lost in the Japanese car industry if all car makers were to switch to battery electric vehicles. Along with that, the third-party suppliers would get smaller too. Kia Toyota isn't the only one to have this concern. A similar concern is shared by German automotive labor unions. Actually, it's one of the reasons for BMW's hiccup in their plans towards electrification. But because of this increase in EV world sales, German and French car manufacturers decided to push aside these concerns in order to stay alive in this growing market. Anyway, it's not just that. Japan as a country generates most of its electricity from burning coal and natural gas. The more EVs they build, the more electricity they'll need to generate in order to power the cars. This would result in more carbon dioxide emissions. For all these reasons, Toyota's been reluctant into getting into battery electric vehicles for over 20 years. But recently that all changed. So what happened? Okay, one word: Tesla. Look, when you have millions of EVs on the road and you gain hundreds of thousands of fans, basically you're unstoppable in the EV world. In fact, many people believe that it'll become the first ground-up U.S. car maker in nearly 100 years to survive. Now, many people know that Toyota is a leader in hybrid vehicles, but they're nowhere close to being a leader in EVs. And that's why Toyota wants to change that, and fast. Last December, Toyota announced its goal to manufacture 3.5 million battery electric vehicles per year by 2030. Talk about a complete 180. But if you find that surprising, listen to this. Toyota also pledged a jaw-dropping $70 billion towards electrification. Toyota isn't the only automaker going full steam towards BEVs. Last July, Stellantis announced investing $35 billion globally for electrification. Nissan announced an investment of $18 billion, Ford $30 billion, GM $35 billion, and Volkswagen $59 billion. You'd think it's like an arms race, but look, none of these giants are even close to Toyota's $60 billion pledge. But here's the thing about Toyota. Technically, their pledge is for electrified vehicles, not fully electric vehicles. Now, I know what you're saying. Is that really big of a difference? You might be surprised to learn that yes, actually, it is a big deal. Here's why. Electrification doesn't mean electric cars. It actually means cars with an electric motor somewhere inside the drivetrain. And Toyota already has scores of hybrids and plug-in variants that fit the bill. Toyota did clarify that they will specifically spend $30 billion on BEVs alone. It's this multi-billion-dollar pledge that has experts believing that Toyota will be the biggest and riskiest bet they ever made. Now, if you're wondering how Toyota will tackle the BEV challenge, well, they've already started. A few months ago, they kicked off their first pure battery compact crossover in America, the 2023 BZ4X. It's not a hybrid, it's not hydrogen. It's pure battery electric, and it's competing with the Tesla Model Y, Ford Mach-E, Hyundai Kona Electric, and Kia Niro EV. If you're curious about the Toyota BZ4X, well, the controversy has already started. Some critics say it's mediocre at best. Others say it's decent. Here's the thing. When this car was first rolled out, the starting manufacturer suggested retail price was $42,000. But since then, Toyota has already announced cutbacks in production due to supply chain issues. So right now, the BZ4X isn't available in every U.S. state. And even if you're in a state where it's available, well, it's available in extremely limited quantities. But it's not just that. These last few months have been a most unfortunate streak for Toyota. This year alone, Toyota has issued various recalls. It involved the new BZ4Xs as well as Toyota Tundras, CHRs, Venz hybrids, and Lexus NXs. As far as the BZ4X is concerned, the wheels were practically falling off shortly after the car rolled out. Literally. Apparently, they found out that the hub bolts on the wheels would loosen to the point where the wheels could detach from the car. So yes, we can say that the BZ4X is off to a very bumpy start. Toyota overall has a solid reputation, and yes, they're good with hybrids, and they're leading with hydrogen. But look, when it comes to BEVs, they're just an infant. The BZ4X hasn't been out long enough for drivers to experience any technical issues with the cars yet. There's just no real road data. So yes, I'm a fan of Toyota, but when it comes to this particular car, personally, I would wait until they iron this out until time proves their track record in battery electric vehicle technology. Did you know that the BZ4X was actually co-developed with Subaru? And Subaru will be selling an almost identical 2023 vehicle they co-developed with Toyota. Stay tuned to find out more about this car later in the video. The front-wheel drive BZ4X is a single electric motor that produces 201 horsepower and 196 pound-feet of torque. The all-wheel drive version has a dual motor setup with total output of 214 horsepower and 248 pound-feet of torque. See, here's the thing with this car. The BZ4X is supposed to be a smooth ride. But if you're used to similarly priced EVs, the BZ4X isn't much of a catch. This is more of a car for a relaxed driver who preferred a quieter ride. Unlike Tesla, Toyota has a reputation for reliability, safety, and affordability, where Tesla is more for enjoyment and pure speed. If you're wondering how the BZ4X compares with the Tesla Model Y, well, the Model Y literally wins in pretty much every department. BZ4X's all-wheel drive offers only 228 miles of range compared to the Tesla Model Y's all-wheel drive long range, which offers 330 miles of range. That's 30% less. The BZ4X has a towing capacity of 1,653 pounds, which is measly compared to the Tesla Model Y's 3,500 pounds. Max payload is 771 pounds compared to Tesla's 859 pounds. But the one thing that the BZ4X does have over the Model Y is its price point. Its starting price is $42,000, where the Model Y starts at nearly $60,000. The BZ4X is available in two trim levels, XLE and Limited. The Limited trim will cost you $47,000. $5,000 upcharge is for a higher trim featuring ventilated front seats, 20-inch wheels instead of 18, and a surround view parking camera. Not many people know this, but believe it or not, Toyota and Tesla actually partnered up to make an experimental RAV4 EV over a decade ago. At the time of its release, the RAV4 EV was the only all-electric SUV available to purchase. But if you were interested in buying it, you needed two things. First, you needed at least $50,000 to buy the car. And second, you had to travel to California since that was the only state that the car was sold in. So you can imagine these two factors really limited its potential. The RAV4 EV was only built to be a compliance car. That means it was just created to meet California's strict zero-emission standards for automakers. If you wonder what the RAV4 EV was like, well, in its normal driving mode, it was able to reach 0 to 60 in 8.6 seconds. But in sports mode, it could reach 60 in 7 seconds. But here was the EV's biggest weakness, its charging time. Unless you bought yourself a level 2 charging station, you were looking at a wait time of 24 hours to get a full charge. And so after the 2014 model year, the RAV4 EV was discontinued. Toyota just couldn't justify the car's lengthy charging times and short range. Did you know that Toyota used to have a small 3% stake in Tesla? But they later sold their stake in 2016. This happened right after Bob Carter, U.S. Toyota senior executive, attacked Tesla for only focusing on BEVs. And of course, Elon Musk had earlier tweeted that hydrogen-powered fuel cell vehicles were fool cell vehicles that didn't help Toyota's relationship with Tesla either. Some people speculate that the split was actually because Toyota wanted the chance to prove itself without the help of Tesla. Toyota's also partnered with Subaru in the development of the 2023 Subaru Solterra. Solterra in Latin means sun and land. To the average consumer, Subaru Solterra and the Toyota BZ4X appear to share many direct similarities. Actually, the designs look almost identical, and both use the exact same lithium-ion battery pack. Their all-wheel drive cars have a 72.8 kilowatt-hour battery. Both are fitted with level 2 and DC fast chargers. Because of these similarities, both also claim to be able to charge 0 to 80% in little under an hour. The main difference is that the BZ4X comes in both front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive options, where the Solterra only comes in all-wheel drive. The Subaru Solterra and the BZ4X share something in common. They both become a nightmare for their companies. The Solterra faced the same safety recall about the wheels falling off, same recall as the BZ4X. Japan's safety regulator found that the sharp turns and sudden braking could cause a hub bolt to loosen. Fortunately, to date, there have been no reported accidents caused by the defect. The BZ4X didn't have a strong running start as Toyota hoped, but Toyota's vowed to be the world's first car maker to guarantee its EV battery to retain 90% of its rated range after 10 years. At present, very few car makers guarantee battery capacity in their EVs at all, let alone for 10 years. Batteries are crucial to an EV as a gas-powered engine is to a gasoline-powered car. The battery pack is where the magic happens. It's the battery that ultimately decides the capabilities of the EV it's powering. So if Toyota's able to meet their own vow, this could be a game changer for the EV industry. But now you tell me, what are your thoughts about the BZ4X? How do you think it'll stack up? And do you think Toyota will ever beat Tesla? Please share your opinion by commenting below. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for your support.